Hibakusha. 1975, Tokyo, Japan. Asuko Furanaka was a professional, secular newspaper reporter. She was not a Christian. Following a series of deeply painful personal betrayals and life crises, she fell into a severe depression, and she felt she could no longer trust anyone or anything. During this low point, someone invited her to attend a Seventh-day Adventist church. She began attending services regularly because she found comfort in the community and a sense of hope in reading the Bible. However, she refused to be baptized because her reporter's mind was still deeply cynical and doubted the supernatural elements of faith. Because she was highly educated, articulate, and possessed professional public speaking skills as a journalist, the local church leadership asked if she would volunteer to teach the children's Sabbath school class. She agreed, treating it more like a moral teaching job rather than an expression of personal devout faith. Let us read what she read to the students from Daniel chapter 3. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits, and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, counselors, sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces, to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Then the princes, the governors, and captains, the judges, treasurers, counselors, sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces were gathered together unto the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then a herald cried aloud, "To you it is commanded, O people, nations, and languages, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king hath set up. And whosoever falleth not down and worshipeth shall the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace." Therefore, at that time, when all the people heard the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and all kinds of music, all the people, the nations, and the languages fell down and worshipped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Wherefore at that time certain Chaldeans came near and accused the Jews. They spake and said to the king Nebuchadnezzar, "O king, live forever. Thou, O king, hast made a decree that every man that shall hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, shall fall down and worship the golden image, and whosoever falleth not down and worshipeth, that he should be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom thou hast set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded thee. They serve not thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up." Then Nebuchadnezzar, in his rage and fury, commanded to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Then they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spake and said unto them, "Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Do not ye serve my gods, nor worship the golden image which I have set up? Now if ye be ready, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the image which I have made, well. But if ye worship not, ye shall be cast the same hour into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is that God that shall deliver you out of my hands? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter. If it be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thine hand, O king. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Then was Nebuchadnezzar full of fury, and the form of his visage was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Therefore he spake, and commanded that they should heat the furnace 7 times more than it was wont to be heated. And he commanded the most mighty men that were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their coats and their hosen and their hats and their garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king's commandment was urgent, and the furnace exceedingly hot, the flames of the fire slew those men that took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, fell down bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonished, and he rose up in haste and spake and said unto his counselors, Did not we cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said unto the king, True, O king. He answered and said, Lo, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt. And the form of the 4th is like the Son of God. Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the mouth of the burning fiery furnace, and spake and said, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, ye servants of the Most High God, come forth and come hither. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came forth of the midst of the fire, and the princes, governors, and captains, and the king's counselors, being gathered together, saw these men, upon whose bodies the fire had no power, nor was a hair of their heads singed, neither were their coats changed, nor the smell of fire had passed on them. Then Nebuchadnezzar spake and said, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, who hath sent his angel and delivered his servants that trusted in him, and have changed the king's word, and yielded their bodies, that they might serve not nor worship any god except their own God. Therefore I make a decree that every people, nation, and language which speak anything amiss against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut in pieces, and their houses shall be made a dunghill, because there is no other God that can deliver after this sort. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. Right after sharing Daniel 3 and the fiery furnace, a young boy in the class stood up and blurted out, I don't believe it. But then a young girl stood up and said, I believe it because my grandmother told me that no member of the Hiroshima Adventist Church died when the fiery bombs were dropped. The skepticism of Veronica. In her own testimony, Veronica admitted that when she heard this, she secretly agreed with the little boy. Her journalist brain thought both stories, the ancient fiery furnace and the modern Hiroshima miracle, were unbelievable religious myths. You must remember this was 1975, and Veronica was 24 years old when the fiery bombs dropped in 1945. She wasn't reading about World War II in history textbooks. She lived through the terror of it. She witnessed the relentless air raids, the starvation of the home front, the crushing defeat, and the utterly horrific physical social devastation of post-war Japan. She then spent decades as a professional reporter documenting the horrific facts of her country's trauma. When a little girl in her class confidentially claimed that Jehovah God protected 20 people from bombing that killed so many so quickly, like a fiery furnace in Daniel 3, Veronica's reaction wasn't just a reporter looking for a scoop. She lived there and experienced it all. The people in Japan who survived the bombs were called hibakusha. The word hibakusha translates literally to bomb-affected people or explosion-affected people. Asaka believed that the little boy was right, but decided to interview the grandmother and the 20 other Adventist members of the Hiroshima church to see if what the girls said was possibly true and that God did protect them in the modern-day furnace of fire. After interviewing the survivors, reported to the world her findings. Asaka's faith was strengthened, and she surrendered her life to Jesus and was baptized. Now for another interesting way God worked in Hiroshima. By the spring and summer of 1945, the Japanese military command had watched the U.S. Army Air Forces systemically incinerate Tokyo, Osaka, and Nagoya using napalm and M69 incendiary cluster bombs. They learned a hard lesson. Dense clusters of wooden buildings acted as superhighways for firestorms. To counter this, the Japanese government heavily enforced the Air Defense Act. Under this law, municipal governments ordered the forced and immediate demolition of thousands of wooden buildings in major cities to create massive 100-meter wide fire breaks, which were empty lanes designed to stop fires from spreading. The Adventist Church was located in the very heart of Hiroshima's military district. The Hiroshima Seventh-day Adventist Church had a congregation of roughly 80 members who met at a chapel right next to the military drill ground. Shortly before the bombing, the Japanese military government labeled this Christian church a hazard and ordered the building demolished. This forced a majority of the congregation to scatter to the country for safety. Ultimately, only 20 Adventist believers remained inside. The elder of the church had to tear down the building, and the members all scattered. It must have been very disappointing and sad for them all, but it was a blessing in disguise, since there could have been many more of God's people suffering and having to live with the horror of it. It's a lesson for us to recognize how God will allow terrible things and disappointments to happen, and yet they are designed to protect and accomplish good in the fiery trials to come. So Hiroshima, estimated reports 140,000 people were killed on the first day. But that wasn't all the deaths. There were many people that died in the aftermath from it, an estimated 349,000. And there are a lot of legends, such as the Vatican came up with 8 priests were saved by praying the rosary. And it made me start investigating who were the 20 Adventists. I could only find 3 who gave the account of what happened that day. I don't disbelieve the reporter. I believe she honestly interviewed all 20. And as I researched, I found out why you only had 3 that were willing to come forward. Now, is it true that God saved some? Absolutely. But whether it was 3 or 20, the point is, God will be with his people through the fiery furnace soon to come. Now, why were there only 3 willing to come forward? Well, it's interesting. All 3 were women. They were older women, past childbearing and marriage years. Now, why would that matter? Well, it is because of the false fear of contagious radiation. You see, the survivors were treated like lepers. And so people falsely thought they were going to emit radiation. It reminds me of 2020 and when we had that medical procedure and how so many Adventists would have nothing to do with people who had chosen to get the procedure for fear of shedding and for fear also that they shouldn't marry them or date them because they couldn't have children. It was the exact same false fears as was developed during Hiroshima. Now, what was also interesting was the U.S. government's involvement. You see, they were limiting the photographs. They did not want to show the actual destruction. And it's hard to find these true pictures of what happened in Hiroshima. And that's partly the reason due to the U.S. government trying to cover up what really happened in Hiroshima. But what is true is that there was a false fear of contagion. And the survivors, particularly the young maidens, became known as A-bomb maidens, thought to have ruined blood. What was interesting was before a marriage was finalized, families would hire a private investigator to look into the background of the prospective bride or groom. If the investigator found a single link to Hiroshima or Nagasaki, the engagement was instantly canceled. And then it was very difficult for the survivors, the ones with all the scars and all the definite damage that was visible on them, to get employment. They were considered likely to not be able to be reliable workers. No wonder I could not find much more on the survivors of the Hiroshima bombing. But let us look at those 3 Adventists whom God was with and saved. Dr. Tomiko Kihara was a medical doctor who ran her own clinic. Having worked a grueling night shift the evening prior, she had only arrived home at 2 a.m. and was fast asleep when the bomb detonated. Remarkably, despite being well within the total destruction radius, no heavy debris fell on her. She was completely unhurt. Upon stepping outside and seeing the flattened city, she ran to the hospital on the edge of town. As one of the incredibly few doctors left alive and uninjured, she worked for a full week straight without sleep or rest to treat severely burned victims, using her survival as an opportunity to witness to others. Mrs. Hiroko Kanao was inside her home when the bomb fell. Startled by the sudden violence, she immediately dropped to her knees and began to pray. While the immense atmospheric pressure caused every single window pane in her house to shatter and explode inward, a phenomenon that blinded or fatally lacerated thousands of citizens across Hiroshima, she miraculously survived what instantly killed so many others. And then Mrs. Iwa Kuamato managed to crawl out from underneath the heavy rubble of her collapsed home. Her husband was a non-believer at the time, was pinned beneath the ruins and fatally injured. As the firestorm began closing in on their position, Iwa refused to leave him, stating they should die together. Her husband insisted she flee for the sake of their children, and in his final moments he confessed his faith to her, stating he now believed in the Most High God and in God's salvation, and that they would meet again in heaven. Weeping, she poured water all over herself, successfully navigated the flames to safety, and was eventually reunited with her children. We have just read two accounts about a fiery furnace, one from the Bible and the other from man. The Bible is absolutely true, every single word. The human account is questionable. So when I ask you, do you believe? I'm not asking if you believe God saved these Adventists in Hiroshima bombing, but which can you absolutely trust? God's account in his Bible or man's account? The account of Daniel chapter 3 tells us God will be with us in the fiery trials soon to come, but it also tells us something else. Daniel chapter 3:15, Nebuchadnezzar boasts, "Who can take you out of my hand?" God answers in his holy word, Isaiah 43:13, "None can take you out of my hand. No one can take your salvation away." In Isaiah 43:13, he said, "Yea, before the day was, I am he, and there is none that can deliver out of my hand. I will work, and who shall let it?" So the question is, children, do you trust God? No matter what happens? Do you trust that he will be with you now and in the time of trouble to come? Well, we know Psalm 91, but now we can add to that Isaiah 43. And there's a song we can sing to help us remember Isaiah 43. Oh, I have redeemed you, I have called you by name. Child, you are mine. When you walk through the waters, I will be there. And through the flame, you will not be drowned. You will not be burned. For I am with you. Fear not, for I am with you. Fear not. For I am with you, fear not. For I am with you, says the Lord. Fear not, children. God will be with us all the way to the end.